Hey, good morning or good afternoon, everybody. This is our product spotlight webinar. I think this is the third one that I've done, so we're turning into a well-oiled machine at this point. I'm Paul. I'm the head of customer success here for Pinpoint in the US. I'm joined by Ed. He's our senior product manager. Every month we host one of these to walk you through what's new in Pinpoint and also share some tips, maybe things that aren't new, to help you get more value from the product. So some stuff new, some stuff old, some stuff that's just pure tips. And let's go ahead and dive in. So Ed, I'm going to hand it over to you to talk about what's new in the product this month.
Wonderful. Thank you, Paul. And hello to everyone in the chat. I can see the closest person to me is in Bristol. I'm down in Cornwall in the southwest of the UK, but Bristol is about as close as I've seen anyone so far. And it's in Cornwall, let me know. Lovely to see you all virtually, as it were. Today, we're going to run through some things, the headline item of which is going to be AI fields. I'm just going to adjust my screen slightly so you can see hopefully my window there. Okay, so hopefully you've all spotted this appearing in the platform this week. The new feature we have is called AI fields. Basically, they are a custom field that's filled in by AI in response to a prompt that you give the system. And in this specific answer we're going to give here is, I want to know some things about candidates in a job. And so I'm going to use the AI fields to check some context, such as their resume and their application questions. And then I'm going to have the system give me an answer to a yes/no question that I'm going to ask it. Lots of words, but what does it actually look like? So to set this up, once we're in the job here, you'll see there is now a button called AI fields, just over to the right here. And I can click on this button. It's going to be blank when you first start, but press create new to start off this system. And to give you some context on how this works then. So I want to, as I say, answer a yes/no type question. Right now, you can only pick yes/no type questions. Spoiler, there will soon be more options in here, but for now, it's just yes/no answers that we want to get. I can give the LLM we're prompting some context. In this case, it's the application answers and the resume. And then I'm free to put a prompt in here to describe what it is I want the system to answer yes/no to me. We'll talk a bit about what best to put in terms of prompts as we go along through here. But for the sake of you not having to watch me type this all out, I'm going to copy and paste a prompt in that I've written outside of here, which is, does the candidate have experience working in a startup? And this means they've worked for a company with fewer than 100 employees and not just collaborated with startups or companies that are startups as clients. Okay, so we've got the context, we've got the response type we want. This is the prompt I'm going to ask. And I'll give you a name really quickly for the title of the column this is going to go into. So we'll call this Startup Experience. Okay, now with this, I can test this on any job in my system, but it'll start with the job I'm open in currently. I can pick a candidate from that system and run this one time just to see what the results are going to look like. So we're going to run this test on Tom's application here and press Run Test. And this will give an example of the output the system will give. And it has looked at Tom's resume and the application answers he's given and decided that, yes, Tom does have experience here. And that's because he founded a company called Infuse Group, which was a business with 5 people, indicating a startup environment. So this is the answer it's given in yes/no, and this is the summary of that answer. Last option, I can mark this as sensitive. We do have a permission in the platform called Sensitive Answer Viewer. And if you have that, only certain people can see that, have a very specific permission to see this data. This one isn't sensitive. I want all my recruiters to see this field, so we can all use that information as we go. So I will choose to save this response. Cool, and now I have a startup experience AI field in my system here, and I can press Save Fields here. And that's now going to bring this in as a column into the job here. Now, it's done a quick evaluation in the background. Whilst I've done that, it's assessed the 5 candidates in this job and has decided that the top 2 have a startup experience and the bottom 3 do not. And these are little chips. They're very colorful, but you can also click on those to determine, as I say, what the AI was thinking when it came to that conclusion. So you can see here a very similar response to the one we looked at previously for Tom. So that's how it works at a high level. Obviously, that's just a single question. You could add in lots more questions and have 4 or 5 responses. They might want to ask specific experience around customer success, for example, where this job is located, or other ones. These AI fields are available across the system. So if I come out of this job for a second and go back to my Manage Jobs page, I can find another customer success job, like this one here, for example, same title, but a slightly different job. And I can choose to go to my AI fields box. And now that question is still here, so I can tick it and have it apply to these candidates in this job as well. So you can create the prompts once and then use them across the system. You'll see the system's just going to go away and start looking at those in the background and start determining the answers to those questions. So super powerful. I say using modern LLMs, I think it is ChatGPT Mini 4.0 this uses. And so, yeah, super useful. Well, a couple of things to go alongside this. To be able to use this in your system, we have a couple of roles available. And so if I'm in the user management page of Pinpoint here, which I'm just going to put again so we can see where we are, I can give this to individual users, or what I would tend to do is give this to the access groups I have set up in the platform. So if I go to access groups, I've got groups for a few different types of user here. I've got hiring managers, interviewers, recruiters, and so on. I want to give this to all my recruiters, for example. I can click on the title recruiters. I can see which permissions this group have. And if I scroll down a little bit here, there is now a set called AI custom fields. You can give people the option to be able to create, manage, and view these fields and the answers, or just have people be able to see the answers in those fields. So they'll be able to see the field, see the response, but not be able to go and create their own responses in case you want to lock down the ability to create new requests. So that's how the system works. In terms of writing prompts, though, we appreciate that not everyone is au fait with this entirely. There's lots of advice online on how to prompt these things well. But to give you sort of short pointers on how to do this best, this is from our AI team, and they're talking about how best to write an effective prompt. We're talking about making it something that's clearly an answer that is going to be a yes, no. So ask a question that will elicit a yes, no answer quite specifically. Be specific about what it is you're looking for and give as much context as you can. So in the example we used before, we talked about the context is it's professional experience, but it's not just having a company they've said they've worked around or a tool of some kind they've used that happens to be a startup or a small company. It's about specifically have they actually worked there, and don't count things where they just mention that they are connected in some way to a startup but haven't actually worked there before. And then there's a couple of things, examples of a bad prompt, a better prompt, and a great prompt, which obviously we can see the top one here is just a single word with a question mark. It's probably not going to elicit great results necessarily. The more context you can give it, the better. So the bottom one, which is the best of all of these, defines what counts, most importantly, what doesn't count as a yes, no. And yeah, make sure that those things can be yes, no specific answers. So hopefully that all makes sense. I've got 4 other small but mighty things to show you before we hand over to Paul. So we'll riffle through these quite quickly, as I know he wants to go through some things today as well. Next up, so this is a sort of small but mighty section. I think this one is going to be incredibly mighty for lots of you. We have finally added the ability to customize the columns you see when you're looking at the application index, as we call this view here, which is the list of applications to any given job. So this is part of the AI fields thing. You might have noticed that when I selected an AI field there, I was able to then put a column in this view that showed the answer to that yes, no question. As part of the work for that, we also now allow you to choose what columns appear in these views in general. So with any given hiring workflow view in line, I can click the Customize Table Columns button here. And in doing so, I can now select which columns I want to appear in this view. For example, I might want to add in the email address of this candidate, when they applied, the details of the channel they came to, basically any other detail we have on this candidate at this point in time. I can do those, but I can also reorder them. So I might want to have the name appear first, so I can drag that up the order, and perhaps the stage I want to bring to the bottom or something along those lines. So I can do that. And in doing so, this view is now reordered, and it's as I'd like it to be. And this will keep scrolling horizontally as well. If I want to add more fields into this, I could add basically everything in and have as many things on this view as I wanted to do. This will cross different jobs. So this is a view for me personally. So I've turned these things on and added these columns here. If I go to any other job in the system, the all applications view here, the tab we're in here, will show the same columns. So this is going to be consistent as I move around the platform. So I can start to customize this the way I'd like it to be. Right now, it's just for me. So I'm not affecting anyone else's view of the platform. Everyone else can set the system up the way they like it. In the future, we're going to make it possible to customize these columns across your various members of your team. So you can perhaps give people very specific views of things as you want to. But for now, this is just myself, and the jobs that I have access to will look this way. This is also per stage type. So if I go to the phone screen interview stage, this is an interview stage of some kind. I can do the same thing again and choose different things to appear on this view. So it's not only on the all applications tab, it's on all the other tabs here. You can see as well. Again, small, but hopefully very mighty for people. Okay, a couple more slightly smaller ones. We have changed the ability of our reporting system. We can now change the type of date any date field gives out when the report is built. So for example, if I build a new report here, I'm just going to choose any one of our base reports. So let's take this job summary, for example. We've added a date format box at the bottom, and for a couple of reasons. First, because if you're connected to a HRIS that takes some kind of report out of the platform, oftentimes there's no way to translate whatever we were using previously for date formats and then have the other system at the other end identify correctly the date. Some systems just want to have the correct date in the correct format always. And also because I appreciate that some of you will be based in the UK, some of you might be in America, lots of different places, and different date formats feel natively better. You want to go and use them in other systems outside your platform in a format that you can read. So it's just a useful way to be able to define that. So there is now a date format box here. And so any field at all in this system that uses dates will take on the format of this date. We've got the same things. We've got the usual ones, usual suspects, but then also these are hyphens. We've also got the same things with slashes, periods in there, and also then just spaces in between. So you can really choose pretty much any date format you can think of that any other system or yourself might be able to read after the fact. Next, we have interview hosts. So we have, in the past, we have had interview templates in our system. And when you set up an interview for somebody, the way we determine interview host was slightly at random. So if you had a video conferencing interview, you could always select a host for the interview. And that person will be a person whose video conferencing links were used, whose calendar the events came from, and so on. If you do face-to-face interviews, you were able to determine interview attendees, but never who was specifically the host. We would assign that at random. And in doing so, this might mean that interview invites might come out of the platform, but any changes to those are coming from perhaps other people, like someone in your C-suite or someone outside of the recruiting team effectively. And then what happens is if people respond to that event, the person who's the intended host is getting messages, notifications in the system that are noisy. Don't really need that to happen. So you can now determine an interview host whether or not this is a conferencing interview. So if I've got these candidates in view here, I can choose to press the interview button. I'm going to run an interview for them. This job will have a face-to-face interview set up on our template here. So we've got a face-to-face type interview. I will pick a time on behalf of the candidate. And then when I'm selecting the options around the interview team, I now have an interview host box, which I wouldn't have had before. So I can pick 2 or 3 people out of this team. I'll add a couple more in there. And I can then determine which of these 3 people is the host rather than that be completely random. In this case, it's going to be me because this is a test platform. Only my calendar is connected to it, but it would be any of these people here, assuming their calendars were also connected. And then last but not least, we have a new permission around HRIS export. So historically, anyone who was a user of the platform who had access to a candidate was able to export those to any connected HRIS you had integrated into Pinpoint. We've added a new role that allows that permission to be controlled a little bit more granularly. Everyone in the past would have had this and will have it by default for now, but there is now a separate export applications to HRIS permission. Everyone will have this on because that was the behavior that's always been possible in Pinpoint. It's always been that way. But now if you want to, you can come on and deselect that permission from certain access groups or from certain users. And now they will no longer see a button that says send to HRIS on any candidate's record. Okay, a whistle stop tour indeed, but that is all the things we're going to look at today. So Paul, back over to you.
Thanks, Ed. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about talent pools today as well, but it is about the end of the year. A lot of people have competing priorities as we land 2025 and go into 2026. So what we thought would be more applicable is that we walked you through a couple of quick, easy time-saving pieces that have been in the platform for a long time, but they may not be super familiar to you. So I'll go ahead and take you through a couple of those, starting with candidate profile split view. So get this request quite a bit. If you go into an individual candidate, most of the time you will see it pop up like this, and you'll see all of this over here. This is called a stacked view. Very easy way to save time within Pinpoint is to flip this over to a split view, which now you can see side-by-side information, but more importantly, you can come in here and you can configure this how you would like. So if you would like on the left side for certain things to appear, maybe I don't want these things, I just want application, resume, and comments. I can also flip around maybe how those look in terms of ordering. So I can do that. And obviously I can also go over here on the right side and configure this as well. So if I like to have a resume up on the right side while I have their personal information over on the left, I can make that happen all via split view. You will see the default is the stacked view, but certainly the split view is going to save you quite a bit of time. Now let's talk through candidate queuing. So most people will manage jobs by going from candidate back to the job every single time. So if I have 22 candidates, that becomes quite cumbersome to do that. What you can do instead is queue those up for review. So let's say that I had 22, and let's pretend all of these are brand new applicants. All I would need to do is hit this button, select all, and then go to queue. And now I'm in a queue where I can set these folks up. You can see right here, I'm reviewing the first of 22 candidates, and I can rip through all of them just by hitting next and going to the next candidate. This is pretty easy if you are viewing a bunch of people at a time. Maybe you have a job where you get a ton of applicants and you want to be able to go through these pretty quickly, take a look at their information and decide whether or not they are worth moving on to the next step. As you move them to the next step, you will also notice that you have the ability to flip to that next applicant and just run through this full queue of 22 candidates super easily. So that's candidate queuing. The last thing we're going to show you really quickly here is the ability to compare candidates. So if I go back out to the role, and let's say that I have reached a point where I have 4 candidates left and I want to view them side by side, what I can do here is check those 4 and then hit this more button over here and click compare. So if I click compare, now I can see them side by side and I can compare Louise to Pura over here. And then I can also toggle through to different folks as I need to. The other cool feature that you have when you compare candidates is to synchronize the scrolling. So if I check this button on, as I go down the page, this stays flat in line, and I can read them side by side. So a good ability to review different candidates up against each other. You can also configure this if you want different items to show up in the list, you certainly can, but just a quick way that you can compare candidates and save yourself quite a bit of time. So 3 small things that are helpful that we hope put a little bit of time back in your day. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here really quickly as we wrap this up, at least for everything that we wanted to cover today. We are at time, so thanks again for everyone's time. We'll do this again next month, probably mid-December or so, with what's new from a Pinpoint perspective. So thanks, everybody, and we will see you next month.
Awesome. Thank you all. See you soon.